crazy scenario. So for this to make sense, all right, I need to remind people I have Michigan going undefeated, win the conference championship. Got Texas going undefeated, beating Texas Tech in the conference championship. I do want to let everybody know I got Notre Dame going 11-1. Woo! That's right. I got them losing at Clemson. I got them beating Ohio State at home and USC at home. That's right, Colleen. How about that? Don't want to hear anything more about us saying negative things about Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman got you going 11-1. But here's where it gets wonky, okay? If what I think holds true in the SEC, Georgia goes undefeated in regular season, right? Goes to the conference championship game. They'll be number 1 in the country, okay? And they'll play, I got them playing LSU. All right, so I got LSU going 11-1, losing to Alabama on the road November 4th. I've got Notre Dame losing at Clemson on the road November 4th, okay? That'll make sense in a second. So if LSU beats Georgia, like I think they will in the SEC championship game, that'll move Michigan up to number 1 in the country, number 1 overall seed. Texas, all right, being undefeated. They'll be the second undefeated team. They'll move up to number 2 seed in the country. LSU beats Georgia to get into the playoff, which means LSU will slide in to number 3, right? Just like that. And then Georgia, they won't keep Georgia out because it'll come down between Georgia and Notre Dame. All right? And Notre Dame's loss, I got Florida State, 10-2, beating Clemson in their conference championship game. So Clemson and Notre Dame will be the 2 odd teams out. Okay? So I've got Michigan number 1 playing Georgia number 4. I've got Texas number 2 playing LSU number 3. I've got Michigan getting over the hump, literally, David.
Wow.
Beating Georgia, that's right.
Winning the national championship?
That's right. They're playing LSU, who beats Texas.
Okay.
Surprises a lot of people. Beats Texas. And Heisman winner Quinn Ewers. There's my Heisman pick. And then I got Michigan, David, beating LSU.
For the Natty.
For the Natty.
Wow.
Big Ten team wins
Wow.
the Natty. Give me
Congrats,
Michigan.
David.
Yep.
Congrats,
man.
No, we
Y'all did it.
You guys did it.
Y'all did it,
You
dog.
guys did it. That's what I have.
We'll make a bowl game this year, 6-6.
Notre Dame's going to be
yeah.
pissed. Clemson will be pissed, but don't lose to Florida State.
You bought in. You bought into the boys
I'm all
in blue.
in. My chip right here.
Wow.
I'm all in.
You're coming over every Saturday.
Chris
Bring up Blaine's. No, I want to go last.
You want to go last? All right, bring your boys up. Here we go. Georgia. Clean sweep, number 1.
Okay.
Hey, the Michigan Wolverines.
Hold on. So they go to the SEC championship.
So Georgia's beating Bama in the SEC
Bama in the
They
SEC
beat Bama in the
championship.
SEC championship, yes.
Okay, so 1 SEC team for you in the
Correct.
What number 1 overall seed?
Yes. Michigan, numero 2. All right, remember they did drop a game at Penn State. Late game, field goal, whiteout, tough environment to play in. Other than that, they walk everybody, including Ohio State. Texas and the boys, Sark.
Wow, you got Texas there too.
Coming in at 3.
Okay.
Yeah, coming in at 3. Their 1 loss at Bama. All right, it's their 1 loss. I think they roll everybody else. Then USC coming in at 4. Lincoln made it to the playoffs. It's a good year. They lose out to Oregon. Caleb Williams is going to be my Heisman winner back-to-back. He's on his Drake stuff. All right, then I got Georgia versus Michigan in the Natty. Okay? You know where we're going with this, Coney. Come on now, baby. The winner is them Bulldogs. They did it again. The 3-peat. Carson Beck, long face in the boys. New quarterback, new OC. But that roster from top to bottom is stacked, boys.
Top to tail.
Kirby, congrats, man. Living a legacy.
Wow.
There it is.
Your Heisman winner's Caleb Williams?
Caleb Williams, he paints his nails and can throw the football.
What do you have Notre Dame going?
9-3.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, bring up my graphic. Here's my college football playoff prediction, boys. Georgia.
Ooh.
Georgia runs through the East, undefeated, makes to the conference championship. Michigan runs through the Big Ten East, makes it to the conference championship. I think the way that the greatness of those teams combined with the lackluster schedules a little bit, clean sweep to the conference championship. But I have Michigan winning the Big Ten, remaining undefeated. Georgia drops the conference championship game to LSU.
Yeah, that's the same.
LSU makes it to the conference championship game, 11-1, losing on the road to Alabama in Tuscaloosa, but they beat Georgia in the Natty, so they move up to number 2. In the SEC championship, sorry. They move up to number 2. Michigan moves up to number 1, which puts Georgia at 4, but they still make the college football playoff because I have Notre Dame going 10-2, Clemson with 2 losses, and Florida State with 2 losses.
Okay.
And then I have Washington sliding into that number 3 spot, 11-1, going into the Pac-12 championship game with their only loss on the road at USC. Then I have them beating Utah in the Pac-12 championship to end at 12-1. So that's Michigan 1 seed, LSU 2 seed, Washington 3 seed, and Georgia in the 4. The interesting question is, where will these teams face off? I think Michigan would probably choose as the 1 seed to play in the Rose Bowl, which would put LSU and Washington in the Sugar Bowl, LSU playing in their backyard. Can you bring up the music, Trey? Let's bring up some motivational music, because I have Michigan beating Georgia in the semifinal to go to the national championship.
To play.
I wonder where this is going.
And then I have LSU beating Washington in their semifinal, probably the Sugar Bowl, to go to the national championship. And now we're in a Michigan LSU Natty, boys.
Oh, David.
It's not every year. It's not every year that your alma mater has a legitimate chance to win the national championship.
Make that face.
Forget any. It's never, really. So this year, I'm going to have to take the Michigan Wolverines to beat LSU in the national championship. Let's go. Jim Harbaugh, suspended first 3 games. The bad guys are out to get us. Our back's against the wall. There's a chip on our shoulder. Let's circle the wagons for head ball coach one time, and let's figure it out. And let's don't blow it. There's no TCU on the schedule this year. Let's don't blow it. Michigan, national champions, undefeated.
Me and you have the exact same thing, except I have Texas where Washington is. Basically,
that's right.
Thing.
And I have Washington. So you have Texas in there. They go up to the 3 seed.
Texas is the 2. So I got Texas at the 2, LSU at the, Georgia at the 4. Bring mine back up. I've got Georgia at the 4, like you do, Michigan at the 1, Texas at the 2, LSU at the 3.
That's because you have Texas undefeated. That's right.
I have Texas undefeated.
And see, it could just as easily be Washington at the 2 seed in mine. Who
knows?
But I just have a feeling if
end.
LSU's only loss is to Alabama and they beat the number 1 team in the country, Georgia, in the SEC championship game, they'd probably go to the 2 seed, but it wouldn't matter. Because I have the same thing as you, where Michigan and then Georgia would drop to the 4 and they'd play each other probably in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, we want to know, who's your national champion? Who do you got finishing where in the SEC? Who's your Heisman winner, David?
Okay, so here's my Heisman candidates, the guys getting invited to New York. Jaden Daniels, LSU.
Agreed.
Michael Penix Jr., Washington, especially if this shakes out and they both make the college football playoff. I think Caleb Williams does get invited again, but doesn't win back-to-back. We've only seen Archie Griffin with the Buckeyes do that. Blake Corum, 1,500 yards rushing at Michigan last year, got injured. He chose to return. If Michigan does go to the college football playoff again, he'll be a big part of that. I have him as a Heisman Trophy candidate, or I should say finalist.
Yeah.
And then the winner, Drake May, quarterback, North Carolina. Drake May winning the award.
Because you got North Carolina going 10-2, right?
Yes, I do.
I do too. I got Quinn Ewers winning.
But not playing in the conference championship.
Yeah,
Clemson,
man.
Florida State for me.
Woo, that was...
Well done, fellas.
Yeah,
Not an easy
well done.
feat.
All right, let's get to it. What are they saying over
Let's go to King Infamous with a $5 donation. Appreciate it, brother. It says, what's your prediction on Ole Miss if they beat 2 of 3, UGA, LSU, or Alabama?
If Ole Miss beats 2 of 3, UGA, LSU, or Alabama. Hold on, let me pull this out right here. I've got them losing to Bama, LSU, and UGA. If they beat, let's say they beat Bama and LSU. Let's just say that. If that happens, then I got them going 9-3 still. That game at Mississippi State at the end, it's going to be tough.
Egg Bowl always
at
is.
Georgia, at Auburn. There's just something about Ole Miss coming to Auburn, man.
Weird games.
It's a weird game.
Auburn always...
They struggle to win. But look, if Ole Miss is good enough to beat Bama and LSU back-to-back, beat Bama on the road, they're good enough to beat Auburn on the road. And in that case, they're going to beat Mississippi State on the road. I'll tell you this. If Ole Miss beats Bama and LSU, they may go 11-1 and play in this championship game, which has never happened. Ole Miss has never won the West. Never won it.
Let's go to Arthur Coleman with a $10 donation. Appreciate it, Arthur. He says, don't yell jinx my Tigers, a-holes.
Don't yell jinx?
Yeah, I think he's a LSU fan.
Yeah. Look, I gassed up LSU last year and they won the West, so you ought to be thanking
the stepdad.
Yeah, Brian Kelly, the stepdad you never knew you needed, but until you were walking across graduating cum laude at Columbia Law.
I think it's just funny that we all have LSU losing that game on the road at Alabama, because that was one I almost had them winning and dropping a game somewhere else.
Dude, I went back and forth. That LSU Florida State game, I mean, just starting off the bat, just like, it's like, get out of my head.
But even if they drop that, even if LSU, especially with Mason Smith out this week, which I like, guys, the NCAA is really just climbing all over my lawn these days, and
they need to get off of it.
Yeah,
I think you should scream
being suspended. One of the best college football players being suspended for one of the biggest college football openers we've seen because he signed some autographs a week.
Imagine not being able to play.
Before.
Like they did the same thing to Todd Gurley. Really, remember that? Did the same thing to AJ Green. Imagine being penalized for signing your name.
It's a racket, man. They want their cut.
Like it's the mob, man.
I'll get off
It's the mob.
Let's say LSU loses that opener at Florida State, which they could, man. Florida State, they're going to be a great football team this year. Still, I mean, you have to like them. They get Arkansas at home. They do go on the road to Ole Miss, but they get Auburn at home. You have to like them going into that road game at Bama.
I'm going to catch hell about the Auburn prediction in the Iron Bowl, which at the end of the day, if you've ever watched the Iron Bowl, they almost won in Brian Harsin's first year at home with TJ Finley, who can't even win the job at Texas State at quarterback. Jordan, if you've ever been to Jordan-Hare,
it's weird at Jordan-Hare.
It's just weird. But when you look at Auburn's schedule, UMass, dub. At Cal, should be a dub.
Yeah.
Sanford at home, dub. I got them losing A&M, Georgia, LSU all back-to-back.
Me too.
Sweeping the Mississippi schools at home, which I can understand. If they lost both of them, I wouldn't be shocked.
I have a Mississippi State loss.
Yeah. Then I got them winning at Vandy, losing at Arkansas, beating New Mexico State at home, and then beating Alabama at home to get to that 8-4. I was going to go 7-5. It was going to come down to that Iron Bowl game. But again, Jordan-Hare, man, weird things happens. Year one, coach. Year ends in a 3. Last time that happened, Auburn lost to Florida State.
And there's only a certain amount of coaches out there that know how to beat who?
Nick Saban.
And one of them is?
Hugh Freeze.
Him Freeze.
Yes. Let's go to Dan Parr, something I could never make on a golf course. $5 donation. Says LSU's D won't be able to stop UGA's offense. Dogs will get the dub easy by 21.
Woo! I mean, look,
Speak it, brother.
LSU's got some cats running around on defense. I just know we got to think about this too. LSU played Georgia last year in the SEC championship. So it's familiar territory for them. And Georgia overwhelmed them last year. Jaden Daniels got beat up. But another thing about LSU, do not forget, little ace in the hole, little caveat, they've got one of the best backup quarterbacks in the country in Nussmeier as well. So if something were to happen to Jaden Daniels, season isn't over, London Bridge isn't falling down, let's pull our pants up and get back to work.
Yeah, I want both of you to know that both your wives are pissed at you.
Oh yeah, I'm getting blown up on the text message over here.
I'm afraid to look at my phone.
I'm not allowed to
go
home
Reed
tonight.
Well, they said a lot.
They said a lot.
Darby Lou says if it's Michigan, Alabama, it's fine. He went there. It makes sense. I have no idea when he became such an Auburn homer.
Well, look, y'all are just overtly biased. So it's okay. That's all right. Fanatical. You still gonna have those pumpkin spice biscuits ready though?
Hey, I'm still waiting on them chicken parm sliders.
They're cutting you off from the food.
Wait, what?
Hold on, whoa, what?
Not me though, right?
Okay.
I don't know.
Not me though, right?
I'll wield some power too.
No, I got it.
I'll wield some power too.
No?
Let me change mine real quick. Alabama.
Actually, wait.
Too late.
Wait, hold on. That 9 was actually an 11.
Too late.
I can't believe I got that wrong.
All right, let's go to Chance. $5 donation. Appreciate it, Chance. He says, if A&M has success, 9 or more wins, Bobby P is probably out for a head coaching job. Would you be positive heading into 2024 with salamander-faced Dan Mullen at OC?
Salamander face? Why y'all do Dan Mullen like that, man?
It does look like he's about to start reading a Geico commercial every time I see him.
Right.
Here's what I'll say. I think with Petrino, you're to the point now. He was just the head coach, right, at a legitimate FCS place, right? Like coming over to be it was going to be the OC out there with Barry Odom. Now he's going to be the OC at Texas A&M. Here's what I think. I don't know if there's going to be a ton of movement after this year. If West Virginia doesn't win and they fire Neil Brown, or Tom Allen doesn't win and they fire him into Indiana, I don't think Bobby P, maybe West Virginia, I could see West Virginia more than Indiana, but if you're Bobby Petrino and A&M does have success this year, and you're getting courted for smaller head coaching gigs, would you not wait around with the talent that you have returning in 2024 up front,
Florida,
with Wegman returning, with young guys out front or out wide, and wait for that bigger job?
Florida?
You could have stayed and had smaller code. You could have kept winning where you were at and getting one of these smaller, what are you going to do? Go take the UL Monroe job?
I think it depends on how the relationship with Jimbo Fisher will go, because Bobby Petrino.
No, it's all
Can you spend
predicated
2
on that.
years getting told what to do?
How patient are you? But I do think if Bobby Petrino, let's say, chance to answer your question, does take another job, and the relationship is good, I think it makes it way more attractive because I think some offensive coordinators, as crazy as the money is, legitimate guys, we're nervous about going to work for for Jimbo Fisher. Because Jimbo Fisher, letting Jesus take the wheel a little bit, right? Taking his hands off it, apparently. And we've talked about how play calling really works. Some people don't really understand it's more of a team effort than what people think. But I think if Bobby Petrino is allowed to do his thing, which I think he will, because he's got that Kevin Steele cachet that Kevin's going to have at Bama as DC, it'll make it more attractive for a Dan Mullen to say, you know what? Maybe Jimbo is okay to work for as an offensive coordinator. Look what just happened with Bobby Petrino. Yes, I'll go be your OC because now I've seen it happen. I think other big-time OCs need to see it happen a little bit before they jump on the train. If that does happen, I think it'll make it a little bit easier, and it makes Jimbo Fisher look like a genius.
Yep, and I think we're going to find out early, too, because you go on the road to Miami, and keep in mind, boys, that's Mario Cristobal down there. Year 2, they are returning Tyler Van Dyke. That team has a lot to prove, and it's not going to be this situation of, Bobby Petrino wants to have this call on 3rd and 7, and Jimbo Fisher wants to have this call, and they argue down each sit. It's not going to be that clean. What you're going to see maybe is a spillover from any disagreements in fall camp. Yes. Oh, I thought this guy should be the starting quarterback.
That's the biggest thing.
That guy should be the starting quarterback.
That's exactly
maybe Jimbo
right.
Fisher had to pull rank. That's the kind of thing you may see if that game's tight down there in Dade County.
Yeah, and the only, you have a better chance of Bobby and Jimbo getting upset about not one person wanting to go for it on 4th and 1 and the other person not, then the actual play
that
call.
Too. I didn't think about that.
The in-game or clock management type stuff, that's where you kind of get the headbutt. But David, you're exactly right, 100% correct on that.
Let's go to Justin Polk. He says, with the success that's projected for Texas this year, how do they perform once they get in the SEC? Do you see a drop-off, or do you see them keeping it steady?
Who's that?
That is Justin.
I think Texas is.
Texas.
Yeah, when they get in the SEC, it's going to be what every other SEC team is. There's going to be an ebb and a flow. You're going to have up years. You're going to have down years. I don't think they're going to come in and run the conference. I don't think they're going to come in and be terrible. I think it's going to be about in the middle. I think Oklahoma and them are going to have that in common. And the common misconception about the SEC is that it's top heavy. It's not. If you know ball, you know that it's not. Ask any coach out there. Any coach will tell you that. If you know any coach, ask them. If they're being honest, they will tell you that. It's not just about beating Alabama or Georgia or LSU. It's the gauntlet of having to go to Mississippi State, to Kentucky. Hell, even Vandy's better than they have been in a while, even though we got them going 0-8 in the conference. You don't really have a week off. And that's not saying that the SEC, every team the SEC has is better than every other team that every other conference has. But in aggregate, from top to bottom, right, the SEC is more of a gauntlet than any other conference. It's because it's up front. That's why, and here's what I say, David. Here's what I say. You think that NFL scouts are biased? So if you think that the SEC is top heavy, then you think that the NFL scouts are biased. You think the NFL scouts, whose job it is, who go look from every school from St. Francis to Alabama, that you're saying that they're biased because the SEC dominates the draft. So if you're going to say that the SEC is top heavy, then you are saying that all the NFL scouts do not know what the hell they're talking about and you know better. And that would make you wrong.
This may sound crazy based off the perception a lot of people have about Texas fans, but I think the Longhorns could actually come into the conference more humble than some other schools, than a school like Oklahoma, because they've been humbled over the last 10 years. We talked about it yesterday. Texas hasn't won double-digit games since 2009. Alabama's won double-digit games every year since then, whereas Oklahoma has been running that conference for the last 10 years. Talking about every week being a gauntlet and you could lose every game you play in a given week in the SEC. Texas has been experiencing that in the Big 12 for 10 years.
For sure.
Right? So to come into the SEC, I think they understand, like, hey, this is not going to be any walk in the park, and that's why this year is so critical, because you do have third year with Steve Sarkisian. You do have the quarterback you wanted who transferred in from Ohio. To leave the Big 12 in your final year as the Big 12 champion, to gain some momentum before you come into the SEC, not just on the recruiting trail, but just from a mindset perspective, how big would that be for Texas?
Oh, it would be absolutely huge. And remember, we have calls, 1-855-236-3228. I'd go ahead and call in right now because I can feel the lines burning as we speak. Also, hit that subscribe button. We're almost to 100,000.
Yeah.
If you like this content, make sure you hit that sub button. Make sure you hit that like button. I can feel the chat going crazy right now, so let's get back to it.
Let's go to Mike and him. He says, don't be surprised if the Razorbacks have the best season under the Pittman era. Double-digit wins possible based on scheduling.
Double-digit wins to me is a stretch. I've got Arkansas going 9-3. Now, if everything works out perfect and the new tackles work out, you did have that big wide receiver injury. I'm interested to see how the guys out wide look. I know they hopped in the portal and grabbed some guys. One of the best backfield tandems in the country. I don't think anybody can deny that. So if you're telling me Arkansas is going to win 10 games, let me get out the notebook of truth, justice, and friendship here. So that means you basically have Arkansas winning all the games that I said and splitting at Ole Miss and Bama, right? Because I don't think they're beating LSU at LSU. I don't think you think they're beating LSU at LSU.
No.
All right, but you have at Ole Miss and at Bama. My 3 losses at LSU, at Ole Miss, and at Bama. So you're saying if Arkansas beats, let's say Ole Miss, I think there's a better chance of them beating Ole Miss on the road than beating Alabama on the road. In my prediction, that gets them to 10-2. That gets them to 6-2 in the West, which would put them still in third place because I'd have them losing to Bama and they'd have identical record.
What did Vegas have them at?
You talking about the win total?
7.
Flat.
Flat.
7 flat.
No hook.
7 flat.
Like a perfect Neverland. No hook.
So I guess in my scenario they could, because I do have them going on the road and beating Alabama, which may shock some people, but then turn around and lose on the road at Florida, which is also a shocker. So in my scenario, if you say, hey, look, Arkansas is just better than Florida. KJ Jefferson is he's one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. They're not going to lose on the road at Florida this year. It's just not going to happen. Then in my scenario, you would have 10-2 if they can go on the road and beat Alabama.
Yeah. There's a couple things working against Arkansas. I brought up the offensive line, right? I brought up the secondary and the depth on defense. But there's a couple things working in their favor. Sam Pittman is an offensive line guru. Right now, he is the head coach. But if anybody can help steer that ship along and get those guys ready, it's Sam Pittman. Okay, the second thing, Dan Enos, new offensive coordinator coming over from Maryland. Going to be a little bit of a different book than what has been going out with Kendall Briles. Love Kendall, right? Excited to see him at TCU. But I really believe that offense will be a little bit harder for people to adjust to because I think they're going to take care of KJ a little bit more. KJ's health, just like every starting quarterback's health, is intricate in Arkansas having success. And it's not just limiting design runs. Now, what Sam Pittman said when we interviewed him at SEC Media Day, it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. It's 3rd and goal, 4th and goal. You got to put the ball in your best player's hands.
Yeah.
That's 100% correct. But having a guy like Rocket Sanders, right, that you can lean on, but KJ Jefferson's got to be careful with his body too during the scramble drills. You can't just go ninja. People don't need no ninja. All right, like because all of a sudden you go a Judy chop into the kung fu kick and there goes your leg.
There goes your leg.
All right, so KJ's got to be smart when he takes off as well. Hey, YouTube, we're so close to 100,000 subs. If you're not subscribed, first off, what are you doing? Make better decisions. And second off, go ahead and subscribe. We want to get there. College football's here. NFL is here. We're heading toward Major League Baseball playoffs. It is a great time of year in the sports world. Don't miss a thing.